some introductions. We'll do that, know who your presenters are today. We'll then jump into the state of AI today. We'll talk about the Inflectra and AWS partnership. And then we have some specific AI customer success stories from both Inflectra and Cloud 303. And I should mention that both Inflectra and Cloud 303 are AWS partners. Hence, we have Vishwa here from AWS on the call. And with that, let's jump into our presenters. I guess I'll go first as I'm speaking. Adam Sandman, I started life as a programmer. Oh my goodness, 25 years ago, I feel ancient. Currently the CEO and founder of Inflectra. I love talking about technology. I love technology, whether that's retro tech or modern tech, AI, you name it. Always excited to talk tech and business and enjoy doing what I'm doing. And maybe Vishwa, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. I'm Vishwa Kurakundi. I am Partner Solutions Architect at AWS. Been with AWS for over 6 years now. And I have over 10 years of experience in big data, machine learning, and in the past 2 to 3 years, generative AI. I help our partners like Inflectra and Cloud 303 to deploy solutions on AWS. So nice to meet you, everyone.
Excellent. Thanks, Vishwa. And Phil, if you could introduce yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Phil Supinski, the CEO and founder of Cloud 303. We're an AWS Premier Partner. I'm a huge nerd. I mean, we do AI ML, we do data science. We've really gotten into the business of just solving people's problems with whatever cutting edge technology there is.
So let's talk about the state of AI today. And I'm going to probably preface this with the warning, the public health warning, that if you're watching this on YouTube, it's probably out of date already, because anything we say today is going to no doubt be reshaped by the events going on. The industry is moving so fast. And so if we talk about, and we're going to be focusing today about the enterprise, AI is obviously being used across many different industries. But when it comes to the enterprise, what we've been seeing are certain ways of adoption. And so if I could maybe let Vishwa, Phil, maybe want to chime in on this one, what you're seeing about phase one.
Sure, I can chime in. I mean, phase one, low-hanging fruit, as you put it. I mean, there's the obvious use cases, right? Like, let's get our knowledge base out there. Let's get content. Let's get training materials. Let's enable people with knowledge rapidly and make people code faster. Those are the obvious ones, right? And those are applicable to every industry, everywhere.
Absolutely. And one of the things I know with coding is that because you've got unit testing and compilers, you have some degree of feedback against hallucinations and verifying what's generated, which I think reduces the risk. And yeah, every time I go to a conference, everyone wants to talk about these three use cases. And I feel like that was the story of 2024. If you look now where we are around higher value activities, I mean, maybe Vishwa, you want to talk about some of the phase two, what we're seeing clients do?
Yeah, of course. So one thing that we are definitely seeing is, enterprises are no longer in the stage of just doing, experimentations or POC. So they are actually deploying production workloads in GenAI or integrating GenAI or building using GenAI, right? So with in the phase two, where we talk about workflow automation, IT modernization. So a lot of enterprise customers are actually using GenAI to migrate from legacy architectures to modern IT solutions, right? Even Amazon ourselves also saved over like 4,500 years, I think, of development work by using AI to transform our legacy code. So yeah, I think, and also vibe coding. That's also picking up a lot of traction, like where you don't have to code, you just provide prompts and then you build applications, right? So yeah, a lot of stuff's going on in the phase two of it, and I think currently we are in that stage or that phase where we are automating, we are vibe coding, building applications without a lot of code. So yeah.
Absolutely, and especially the vibe coding is allowing a lot of business users that didn't necessarily have IT teams who maybe in the ancient days would have used like Excel macros to build something very minor, very elementary. Now they can build an actual business line app internally without needing an IT resource, which is pretty incredible, enabling business users to basically build on the fly. Which is fantastic. And I think you're right. I think the enterprise is exiting phase one and entering phase two. I think we as consultants and advisors are probably in phase two already. And where we're going, I think, as phase three, I can talk a little bit about what we're seeing with that, but I'd love to get your insights. What we're seeing is clients really want to start to look at their data and monetize and take the data they have and tag it and understand it and use that data to build a non-generic AI story. Because a lot of times AI has been around using a foundational large language model and finding use cases for that. But anyone can build that. Your competitors can build that just as easy as you can, subject to the right skill set. But when it comes to your data, that's your competitive advantage. So your requirements, your enterprise data, your customer data, whatever you want to build, use your use case, having that data becomes, I think, your differentiator, your moat in the AI world. I don't know, Phil or Vishwa, if you've come across what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, enterprise data classification is one of the examples in here, and just passing in large text objects or descriptions or even just URLs to different things into AI and pulling out structured data for classification purposes, multiple inferenceable and classifiable levels of data so that you can add metadata to your existing data sets. It augments multiple workflows like look at all your reviews for in a retail site or like on Amazon.com, put in just all your reviews and immediately start to analyze and create normalization around how your customers are interacting with your solution, what pain points it's solving, what is the biggest use case. There's tons of things that would take a human being months or years to do that it takes AI seconds to do,
Right.
that are business value.
That's true. And one use case I've heard about is around in the sales cycle and the customer retention is looking at large amounts of transcripts with support agents and with customer success agents and looking for the signals of churn based on certain data points and looking for early signals that churn may occur before it's even visible to a human agent that might have thought this client's really happy, but actually these 10 data signals tell us they're actually a churn risk.
Yeah, that's actually really good insight. Like AWS Connect, the data call center solution, we're seeing tons of integrations with that into like real-time sentiment analysis. So you can have managers interjecting calls as they're going on, or you can have real-time insight for the call center agent. And sometimes even have call center agents that are almost so human that people can't even tell at this point. So yeah, there's a lot in that space.
Absolutely. And on our company Inflectra comes on the DevOps side, and we're saying the fact that all this text, all this classification helps you write better applications. Because if your requirements and your documentation and the data around your applications is better, then you can actually have go from vibe coding to potentially enterprise app coding. Long-lived applications becomes more feasible as well. So moving on then into some of the predictions and metrics we're seeing, these are some of the ones we've heard in the industry. Google's, I think, CEO said that they anticipate last year already 25% of all new Google code is generated by AI. And I actually heard a more provocative statement that by the end of 2025, 75% of all code in most digital native organizations is going to be AI written. I'm not sure if I believe that fully, but I have heard some people say that's the case. We will see. But certainly a large amount of code that's being written is going to be either written by AI or certainly augmented and accelerated by AI for sure. And then another one that I think Vishwa provided for us was from Gartner is that over 80% of ISVs will be integrating Gen AI into their enterprise software by 26. So I think a lot of times we feel like and we're an ISV, adding AI to our product makes us a revolutionary, game-changing company. No, it'll be table stakes by next year. So if you're starting today, it's possibly too late already, because by the time you release it, you're already at the tail end. So if you're an ISV, you have to think about what are the next generation of use cases, the phase 2 and phase 3. If you're just adding AI today, by the time it's launched, you're already going to be at the tail end of your industry. So it's moving really fast. So one thing sorry, please feel free to add.
Yeah, just give some more context on that, right? Today, only 5% of the ISVs have Gen AI integrated into their enterprise workloads. So from 5% to 80% in like 1 year. So that's a lot of work going on.
Wow.
In integrating Gen AI. So yeah.
Is it really only 5%? Wow, I feel like it's so much more because I think of people like the Salesforces of the world and Amazon and obviously us and other of our competitors are all doing it already. But I guess we are amongst that rarefied 5%. That's interesting. Another thing I found very interesting is that one of my colleagues at Fujitsu had found that the traffic to Stack Overflow, which is the #1 coding site, decreased by 70% since the launch of ChatGPT 3.5. If you go on SEMrush or any of the SEO tools, people are not going there for code anymore. Everyone's going to AI coding assistants, whether Amazon Q for developers or Copilots or Gemini, whatever you're using. As a result, that was the source of a lot of the AI. So where is that new source of data going to come from? Where are we going to get the new examples that will feed into AI? Because people aren't going to be incented to contribute to Stack Overflow if no one's reading it. So it changes the entire business model of some of these sites that we're using for data, and certainly shows the increase in AI in the development space. Another partner of ours, Planet, in Australia, in some of their products with clients, they said they've seen a 300% increase in code quantity, but they have seen, in many cases, a 400% decrease in code quality, as they defined it anyway, in some of the customers they're working with. Some examples I've heard where AI will generate fictitious AI endpoints that don't exist. And some of the integration work we've been doing, we find that you can ask an AI to write some code for you, and if you give it an API that's not well documented, rather than saying there's no documentation, it will infer a pattern from other endpoints, and so it ends up giving you a false positive answer. So those kinds of examples mean that if you're not careful, you can have AI generating code that, whilst maybe compiles and works, doesn't necessarily deliver the value, and you end up with maybe just more bottlenecks in testing. So one of the challenges that we're dealing with as a software testing company. Anyway, anything else you'd like to add, Phil or Vishwa, on any of these?
I mean, I thought the stats are very compelling. Interesting to see on the ISV one, especially, how they're counting an ISV versus, are they including open source, or there's a lot of technology that's just kind of been shelved but still in use. As an example, like DB2, right? And that's an ISV of sorts, but we're seeing Gen AI used in the opposite way. Everybody's moving off of DB2 using Gen AI. So, yeah, it's interesting. I always look at statistics and just wonder, and then it's absolutely true that AWS or AI is changing the world in crazy ways right now. So I'm curious, like you, to see how it comes out.
Right. Are we heading towards the singularity?
Yeah, scary.
Exactly. So I'd like to talk about the Inflectra and AWS partnership. And I would like to mention AWS and Cloud 303 are both AWS partners. And at Inflectra, we host all of our solutions exclusively on AWS. And when we need a partner to help us accelerate our AI offering to be in that 5%, not in the other 95%, they've been really helpful in helping us co-innovate and build great solutions. And Vishwa is actually one of our partner solution architects who's been helping us do that. So Vishwa, if you want to tell us a little bit about some of the great innovations that AWS has been providing to Inflectra and other companies.
Yeah, of course. So yeah, I do want to start with the AWS Gen AI stack, right? So at AWS, we are, Adam, we are relentlessly focused on providing, the best set of tools that you need to build Gen AI applications. So as such, we have the bottom layer, which is the infra layer, right? So this is where we provide state-of-the-art chips, GPUs, petabyte scale networking capabilities, as well as hyperscale clusters. And then in the middle layer is where we have, or we provide all the tools that you need to access large language models from Amazon, as well as from our third-party providers in a secure, responsible, and cost-effective way, right? So that's the middle layer. And we accomplish that by our service called Amazon Bedrock. And then at the top layer, we have Amazon Q, where you can extend the capabilities of your applications and even your developers without having to think about what underlying technology you want to use, like which large language model you want to use, right? So that's the Gen AI stack by AWS in a nutshell. And we, with Inflectra, are working in the middle layer as well as on the top layer. And I will talk about those in a bit. Adam, if you go to the next slide, please.
Yeah, next slide.
Thank you. This is Amazon Bedrock. So Bedrock, in Bedrock, we provide broadest choice of high-performing foundation models from Amazon and our partners. So you can see we have models from Anthropic, we have models from DeepSeek, we have models from Meta, all of them. These are all fully managed for you. So you will be accessing them through just a single unified API, right? Next slide, please.
Okay.
And then we also launched Amazon Nova last November, I think December, during reInvent. So Nova is our state-of-the-art foundation models, and then we provide industry-leading price to performance. And this enables all our customers as well as partners like Inflectra achieve cost savings. I think we have up to 75% cost savings by using Nova. So and then if you see, we have 6 models right now from Micro, Light, Pro, which are available as of now. These are understanding models. And then Premier is coming soon. And then you can see in the slide, we also have Canvas and Reel, which are our content creation models. And then just yesterday, we also launched a audio model called Nova Sonic, which is not in the slide, but yeah, we launched that model yesterday. So yeah, a lot of development happening in our first party foundation models.
Excellent. Yeah, you heard it here first.
Yep.
And maybe we talk about the Inflectra and AWS innovation story. So first of all, let's talk about the current state. Do you want me to talk about that? I'll talk about this piece, and then I can hand it over to Vishwa for the phase two. Phase one is was a way for us to get to market really quickly. We wanted it to be moving forward for our customers because we knew they saw the concept of Gen AI. They didn't understand the use cases. They didn't understand the benefits. So using our own plugin architecture, we were able to deploy really quickly plugins to our current core product, our SaaS product, Spira, using plugins, and we let the customers bring their own basically LLM to the game, and they could connect their Bedrock account to our application. They could choose their LLM, and lets us get to market really quickly, get feedback on the use cases, and refine the use cases. And at that point, we realized that we needed to make this an embedded feature, something that was truly native, so we could build a more, I think, scalable foundation to start doing more innovation in the sort of the phase three data classification, data tagging realm that we talked about earlier. And so we realized that though this phase one infrastructure was good to get to market quickly, it wasn't a scalable foundation for the next steps. And so Vishwa and his team were really helpful in helping us build out phase two, which I'm going to let Vishwa talk a little bit more about.
Yep, yeah. Phase two is Inflectra's first party SaaS, and it's using Amazon Nova. So by using Nova, they're getting up to 75% cost savings, which they can then pass it down to their customers. Now, this is where, for Inflectra's customers, it's really easy. They don't have to think about which large language model to use, right? It's because it's provided by Inflectra for them. But then if they want more choice in the model, they can do the bring your own license model where they do have some flexibility into choosing the foundation model, right? And yeah, that's the flexibility that Bedrock and Nova provides. And then now, because they're using Bedrock, we have a lot of different tools integrated within Amazon Bedrock. So Inflectra are using prompt management to efficiently manage prompts that they'll be using for their application. They're also using Bedrock guardrails. So they're using guardrails to secure GenAI applications. So guardrails provides all these filters, content filters, PII, masking, things like that. So they are using guardrails to secure their application. And then because Inflectra's application is on AWS, so they have access to broadest set of services and tools. So they are leveraging API Gateway, AWS Lambda, CloudFront for their application, but also they are using tools like CDK to manage and deploy not just their infrastructure, but also because CDK integrates with Bedrock, they are able to deploy their prompts, create different versions for their prompts, and then deploy them using CDK, right?
Absolutely. And then, of course, as I mentioned, we wanted a good foundation for the future. And so we have some major initiatives. I'll let this build completely so you can talk to the slide completely. We have basically decided we want to use this foundation then to start looking at the next phases of how we can add additional Gen AI capability to our platform. If you want maybe talk a bit about some of these as well, that'd be great.
Yeah. So some of the things that we are working with Inflectra is RAG. So Inflectra has a lot of these data sources and data in those data sources, right? So building this RAG will enable Inflectra to provide much more meaningful insights to their customers who are using it. So and yeah, we are working on that initiative building RAG capabilities for Inflectra's application using Bedrock knowledge base. And then as an extension of that comes in phase two is leveraging Amazon Q index for ISV. So what this allows Inflectra to do is Inflectra software can connect to their customers' siloed data from different ISV apps, right? Like Jira, Salesforce, Dropbox, we have over 40 connectors. So Inflectra can connect to those and then provide more meaningful insights for their customers. So for an example is because Inflectra can connect to Jira, they can show which Jira issues are blocking which customer opportunities in Salesforce, right? Just an example. So that's something we are discussing as phase two. And then phase three, Inflectra already is doing some really cool stuff in this space using Anthropic's computer use for test automation.
That's right.
As an extension of that would be, to use agents and even model context protocol or MCP to orchestrate really complex tasks and take actions on behalf of their customers, right? So these are some of the things that we are discussing for future state.
Right, and the phase 3 is that Vishwa was referring to ties into our test automation tool, Rapise. Currently, that's using Anthropic computer use to be able to do vision-based testing and also independently test applications. In the testing space, we see autonomous testing as the future, where the idea, it'll seem archaic to write Selenium script. It's going to seem archaic to do manual testing because AI can do a large part of that testing either autonomously or semi-autonomously, and using Amazon Bedrock agents will be a large part of how we're going to do that within the test automation space. Phil, anything you'd like to add about any insights you have on any of these before we move on?
I mean, there's so many things to talk about here. Amazon Q as an example has custom connectors. So if you have an app you want to connect to Amazon Q to make it broadly available to your customers or just internally, you can connect pretty much any data source to Amazon Q, similar to any RAG store, really. And there was a question that popped up about RAG. I think it's retrieval augmented generation. And I could be wrong on that acronym, but basically it's a database of all of your data that augments the LLM so that you can do natural language queries to it. It's like, tell me everything about something, and then like that in itself gets vectorized. It goes and finds the data inside your RAG database and returns the closest matching natural language match of the data that you put in there. So it's kind of a Oh man, I have some keywords for it, but it's really hard to wrap your head around how it works technically. But it is basically just a brain to augment, a data store to augment your chat GPTs, your Anthropics, all those tools, so that you can bring your own specific knowledge to the table. I hope that answers the question.
That's great. And the questioner gave us a thumbs up, so I think we hit it on the head there.
Okay. Cool.
And our idea is to use Inspire. Has our product has, for those who are not familiar, has all this great data, has all this traceability information, customers' requirements, code issues, change requests, risks, mitigations, all of that rich data sets. The aim is to use RAG to mine that and actually give you real-time insights. So it's pretty amazing what we're going to be able to do, which is super exciting and scary all at once. So I'd like to move on maybe then, I know, because I want to keep this on schedule, to some success stories. So where have we used AI today? We've got some success stories from Inflectra, and then we've got some from Cloud 303. I'll talk about the Inflectra ones briefly. They're on the slides too. We'll be sharing this. Jagger is one of our customers. They're in the supply chain and enterprise software space. And they've been using the AI functionality that we have to do a couple of different things. One is they recognize that they've got very large complex applications which are very hard to test, tons of data parameterization, tons of screens, very large legacy test automation frameworks they had. And as they're scaling their business and dealing with the need to be able to have more testers, more testing teams work on it, they needed a way to basically have a platform that let all those different testers and automation work happily together. They also found that their requirements were not in as good shape as they would have liked. And so they're using AI right now to, first of all, take their existing requirements and improve them, give feedback on the ones they have, give suggestions to how they could be improved. And then once the requirements are improved, use the AI that we have to take those requirements and system specs, turn those into test cases and test scenarios, build out test data, synthetic test data using our test automation tool, and then identify any potential risks and ideally even mitigations that go with that. And that's what they're using the Spira's AI capability to do. In addition, there's a side project we're working on with them where they have this custom test framework written in Groovy that they want to move into our Rapise test automation framework so they can get advantage of the natural language to automation benefits where you can write in natural language and it turns it into test automation script without having to do it manually. Manual automation is what we have today. Now we'll have automated automation. But the problem is they have all these legacy assets in Groovy. So we're using AI to do the actual modernization of the actual test automation framework into our application to then use the other AI to be able to then accelerate people being able to build more and more automation. So they want to get to the point where every single test for their entire ERP can be automated and manual, and it can run an automation. And if the automation fails for some reason, there's a manual test script that a human can pick up today, and in the future, an Anthropic computer use could pick up, and that's where we're going. And right now, they've cut they've improved their productivity by 25 to 40%, depending on the task, and they migrated their test framework in about 3 months using AI, which it would have taken probably a year otherwise. So major productivity benefits using AI. The second client is Editech in the life science healthcare space. And it's interesting because a lot of times people will say with AI, I'm not allowed to use it. We've got compliance rules. but they're in the GXP space, and they're using AI in their product, which is a life science platform for patient management system, and they're able to use AI to take natural language and turn it into queries and be able to get better analytics for their customers. So whilst they were doing that, they've also been using the AI that we're using, that we provide as part of our platform, to help improve the testing and the productivity of their testing team. And they're not doing release with us automation currently, so they're using it primarily to improve the speed of generating the manual test cases and test scenarios, all the documentation. And they're looking forward to be able to do more detailed analysis using the RAG technique that Phil mentioned. But some of the use cases that they're looking at are analyzing the root cause of defects in production, trying to understand where these came from. So rather than fixing a single bug that came in, you can fix the root cause and prevent 9 other bugs from materializing. And they also are using the AI to start doing coverage gap analysis. Because right now, our product could tell you you're missing test coverage in certain areas, but it can't tell you what to do about it. Well, the AI can take it to that next step and say, not only is there a coverage gap analysis, but here's what you should be doing about it to reduce that gap. And with the current AI that we released, the phase 1, they've already saved time by 30% creating test cases, and they've reduced rework time by 25% by identifying potential risks before they happen. And those are the 2 case studies from our side. Vishwa, Phil, any comments on those, or I'm going to move on to the next 2?
I think time says there's no questions.
Okay. Okay. So moving on to Cloud 303, if you've got time to talk about these
I
case
will
studies.
make it. Absolutely. I mean, I just being respectful of everybody else's time.
Yeah.
But I will make this quick because ClickBank, they used RAG. They were it was an FDA process. They publish a bunch of advertisements, claims, things like that for their customers, and they need to be FDA compliant. So it's a huge human process to make sure that the claims are things that they can make. Huge fines with the FDA, FTC if you don't do that. So they loaded all this existing data into RAG, saying this was compliant, this wasn't compliant. That's an oversimplification, but it gave them a natural language, like here's the actual text that was compliant. And then they took new text and they just basically looked for like the closest match to that text, and it would come back as compliant or not compliant, just based on whether it matched better with the compliant stuff or non-compliant stuff. And it saved them eight people worth of work. I think that's a great use case for RAG. And there's obviously a little bit of nuance to how that was implemented, but we're not going into that today. Next one, if you don't mind.
Yep, no problem. Hold on. There we go.
Cool. Covio. Okay, so Covio, this one is actually kind of interesting. So they wanted to really optimize their search engine process. They are essentially an e-commerce search engine / platform. So what they did was they got data on the top from Google. They got the data on the top search terms around the products that they had, and they used AI to take those search terms and search a RAG database of all of their product listings and create a static page that was directly all those scraper robot solutions. Sorry, I can't think of the word right now, but would be directed for SEO purposes to this statically built page specific to those top keywords. So it would optimize their SEO. And now they're taking that and using that for all of their customers. So AI generated pages against RAG for an SEO strategy. So people are getting creative, if that makes sense.
I would like to thank my 2 co-panelists, Phil and Vishwa, for being here today. Thanks again for the great insights today. And if you're interested in other webinars, for those who follow Inflectra, we do have monthly webinars on both our Inflectra channel and our InflectraCon 360 channel. Please keep an eye out for future events. We'll be doing lots of things on test automation, DevOps, AI, and other interesting enterprise IT use cases. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Adam. Appreciate you hosting.